Forget about making money. That phrase may sound like heresy in a world addicted to hustle, hourly wages, and the desperate pursuit of quick profits. But I say it with full conviction, because I have seen the truth from both the top of success and the depths of failure. Those who spend their days chasing dollars remain forever enslaved by them. But those who understand wealth, who create it from within, become the masters of their destiny. The richest 1% do not think in terms of income, they think in terms of ownership. They don't work for money, they build systems, they grow value, they expand reach, they multiply results. That is the foundation of real wealth. You must reframe how you think about money. It is not your goal. It is not your end game. It is not even your prize. It is merely a tool, a servant that follows value. And value originates not in your labor, but in your mind. Wealth, my friend, is not the amount of money in your bank. It is the strength of your thoughts, the precision of your purpose, and the discipline of your habits. Money can be lost, stolen, or squandered. But wealth, once formed in the mind and expressed through action, becomes a compounding force that no man, recession, or setback can take from you. The masses trade time for money. The rich trade ideas for freedom. When you make this shift, when you stop thinking about what you can earn in an hour and start thinking about what you can build over a lifetime, you move from survival into significance. You move from being an employee of someone else's vision to becoming the architect of your own empire. Money flows to people who solve problems. It flows to people who create systems that serve others. It flows to those who think in terms of scale, not labor. To truly create wealth like the top 1%, you must stop thinking transactionally and start thinking exponentially. You must develop a definite chief aim that extends beyond just making ends meet or paying the bills. You must plant the seed of a long-term vision so deeply in your mind that it begins to color every decision you make. Most people ask, what can I do to get paid this week? The wealthy ask, what can I create now that will pay me every week for the next decade? That is the difference. Real wealth builders do not seek approval. They are too busy refining their plans. They do not rush to show off their income. They let their portfolios speak quietly for them. They do not flaunt luxury. They invest in leverage because they understand that the appearance of wealth is not wealth, it is a trap. And too many people are stuck in the pursuit of image instead of legacy. Your mind is your factory. What you feed it becomes your production line. If you flood it with noise, distraction, and short-term goals, it will manufacture stress and disappointment. But if you fill it with clarity, purpose, and strategic vision, it will produce wealth. Not instantly, not loudly, but steadily, consistently, compounded like interest over time. Every fortune begins in the silence of thought, in the blueprint of a mind that dares to step outside the crowd and build something the world can use. Do not confuse busy work with wealth work. There are people working 12 hours a day who will never be free because they are trapped in a system that will not scale. The man who becomes wealthy is not necessarily the one who works the hardest, but the one who thinks the clearest. The one who understands that multiplication beats repetition. The one who chooses ownership over employment. The one who values systems over stress. And what are these systems? They are ideas turned into structure. A product that solves a problem. A service that scales. An investment that grows. A process that duplicates itself. Wealth comes from leverage, and leverage comes from creation. You do not create by rushing. You create by thinking, designing, executing, and refining. The richest 1% are not frantically jumping from one trend to the next. They are steady, focused, patient. They are building foundations while others chase quick fixes. They know that short-term thinking produces short-lived results, so they think long. They think deep. They understand that it may take 5 or 10 years to build something worthwhile. But once it is built, it stands and pays for generations. You must begin to ask yourself not, what can I make today, but what am I building that will still matter in 10 years? That is the question of the wealthy. That is the question that unlocks real freedom. And freedom is the only true measure of wealth. Not the car, not the watch, not the home. Freedom. The ability to do what you want, when you want, with whom you want, for as long as you want. To achieve that, you must develop discipline. Discipline in thought. Discipline in habits. Discipline in how you use your time, whom you allow into your life, and what you feed your attention. Your attention is your most valuable currency. Spend it where it compounds. Do not waste time debating with people who do not think in terms of legacy. Do not invest energy into projects that do not align with your long-term vision. Protect your mental environment the way the rich protect their portfolios, ruthlessly. Because everything flows from your state of mind. When your mind is scattered, your results will be scattered. But when your mind is focused, everything else becomes inevitable. This is the difference between earning a living and creating a life. If you focus only on making money, you will build a cage. A shiny one perhaps, but a cage nonetheless. Because you will be forced to show up, to perform, to grind in exchange for each dollar. But if you focus on creating wealth, you are building a ladder. And every hour spent working on your ladder lifts you closer to true independence. There is no secret to this. There is only principle, and principle must be obeyed. Wealth is built on clarity, consistency, and compounding. Those 3 C's will guide you further than any financial tip or market trend ever will. Be clear about what you want. Be consistent in how you move toward it. And ensure that your actions are always compounding, adding, growing, multiplying, not just filling time. You must also learn to delay gratification. The man who becomes wealthy has trained himself to wait, not to hesitate, but to wait for value to mature. He invests in the invisible. He waters the roots before he harvests the fruit. He does not panic when others panic. He studies. He observes. He builds. If you want to be wealthy, you must stop reacting and start designing. Your week should not be a random list of tasks. It should be a roadmap, a sequence of steps that move you closer to your vision. Each hour should serve your highest aim. Each interaction should protect your peace. Each decision should be made through the lens of ownership and long-term value. Stop asking how to make money. Ask instead, how do I become the person who attracts wealth effortlessly? Because wealth is not just about action, it is about identity. You will only attract and sustain what matches your internal standards. So raise them. Upgrade your thinking, elevate your circle, deepen your discipline, clean up your environment. Build systems that serve you. Create assets that grow without your daily involvement. The rich do not chase, they construct. The poor chase the next opportunity. The rich construct a philosophy that becomes a magnet. They let others run after trends while they build structures that endure. You do not need more hustle, you need more structure. You do not need to do more things, you need to do the right things. You do not need to earn another dollar to start, you need to think differently. Because until your thoughts shift, your life will remain the same. So forget about making money. Commit to creating wealth. And become the type of man who is not moved by economic storms because he has already built his economy brick by brick, idea by idea, principle by principle within. When you study the richest 1%, you begin to see that their wealth was never the result of mere labor. It was the result of understanding leverage. Leverage is the secret no one teaches in school. It is not just financial leverage. It is time leverage, attention leverage, knowledge leverage, emotional leverage. The wealthy understand that one well-designed decision, one disciplined idea, one committed investment can do the work of 1,000 scattered efforts. They do not scatter their energy, they concentrate it. That is the essence of true leverage, concentration of resources on a single powerful objective that multiplies over time. The reason most people never escape financial mediocrity is not because they lack potential. It is because they try to do too many things at once, and they do all of them poorly. The man who creates wealth focuses. He identifies a single purpose, a clear outcome, and then aligns everything in his world to serve that outcome. He organizes his mind, his time, his network, his behavior. Everything is directed like a laser. You cannot build wealth without a structure. You cannot reach freedom without a blueprint. So ask yourself, what am I building that works harder than I do? What system am I designing that continues to produce, whether I am present or not? The wealthy are not owned by their calendar. They own systems. They do the work once, and the result is delivered many times over. Do not be mistaken, this is not passive living, this is intelligent creation. This is not laziness, this is strategic patience. The man who becomes rich does not seek busy work. He seeks assets that work harder than he does. Assets that pay him not just in money, but in time, peace, mobility, and choices. This is how the 1% operate. They value what scales. They invest in what compounds. They spend time today so that time tomorrow becomes their servant. If your calendar is filled with tasks that do not compound in value, you are not building wealth. You are managing activity. The poor and middle class are busy, but the wealthy are productive. They understand the difference between motion and progress. They do not mistake busyness for importance. They are not impressed by packed schedules. They are impressed by results. And results come from prioritization. Most people fail to get rich not because they didn't try, but because they spent their best energy on the wrong things. They scattered their attention. They followed every opportunity. They said yes too often. They feared saying no to the world, and so they said no to themselves instead. But the wealthy know that every yes is a trade. Every agreement is a seed. And only the right seeds will bear fruit. They are selective with projects, with people, with plans, because they understand how fragile focus is and how rare clarity becomes in a distracted world. You must become protective of your focus, ruthless with your energy, relentless in filtering what enters your mind and your life. Your focus is your future. What you give attention to will grow. If you feed confusion, you will harvest chaos. But if you feed clarity, you will build wealth. This is a law, and laws do not bend because of your feelings. You must adjust to them. The world will not stop being noisy, but you must become quiet within. The world will not stop offering distractions, but you must stop accepting them. The world will not hand you freedom, you must build it. One decision, one system, one filtered action at a time. You must also embrace the invisible season. The period when the work is being done, but the world cannot yet see the result. The rich know this season well, they endure it. They do not abandon it. They do not need applause during the building phase. They trust the process because they have studied principle. They understand that just as the farmer plants seeds he cannot yet see, they are building wealth long before it appears in their account. They are not emotional about the timing. They are anchored to the outcome. So ask yourself, am I committed to an outcome or am I addicted to results? Because the man who creates wealth lives by commitment. He is not swayed by mood or setbacks. He does not need instant wins to stay consistent. He has long outgrown the need for permission. He acts from vision, not from reaction. He has trained his mind to ignore the noise and to pay attention to the few things that matter. That is where leverage lives. In doing less, but doing it with such precision, such consistency, and such intelligence that it produces more. This is what it means to own your world. You are no longer owned by urgency. You are no longer a servant of emotion. You have exited the reactive loop. You are now deliberate, calm, quiet, and unstoppable. And in this state, wealth becomes your servant. Opportunities begin to chase you, not because of charisma, but because of clarity. People trust those who are stable. Markets follow those who are consistent. Clients pay those who deliver, not those who promise. This is why the rich are quiet during noise. Why they appear indifferent to crisis. They are not blind. They are focused. They have already designed the plan, and they are not about to abandon it because of temporary turbulence. You must become the same. Your conviction must run deeper than convenience. You must know what you're building and refuse to betray it for anything that merely feels good today. Wealth rewards the faithful, not the frantic. The man who creates wealth wakes early, not just in the morning, but in mind. He sees further. He plays longer games. He is already preparing for opportunities others cannot yet imagine. He does not hoard knowledge, he applies it. He does not boast, he builds. He does not need to win today, he wins forever. Because the game he plays is not about next month's income, it is about next decade's impact. And he is patient. Because he understands the rule. Whoever controls the asset controls the outcome. And the greatest asset is not the stock or the property or the cash flow. It is you, your mind, your attention, your decisions, your philosophy. You must become the kind of man who wealth cannot ignore. This is not about chasing. This is about becoming. Become so structured in your thinking, so grounded in your behavior, so wise in your action, that wealth becomes the natural byproduct of who you are. Do not wait for the right opportunity. Become the man who sees it before anyone else. Do not hope for a raise. Become the one who creates jobs, systems, solutions. Do not wish for freedom. Design the system that grants it. Because here is the truth. Wealth is not luck. It is law. And those who understand the law no longer pray for success. They build it. They align with it. They live it. And that life is yours to choose. Not tomorrow, not next year, but now. You have the power to think differently, to move with strategy, to act with focus, to build with purpose, to execute with integrity, to live with the clarity of someone who no longer asks for permission but who writes the rules of his own economy. So, forget about making money. Forget the shallow chase for temporary gain. Create wealth like the 1% do, with silence, with certainty, and with systems so sound that the world can't help but reward you. When you create wealth, you do not merely change your bank account. You change your very being. You shift from reaction to responsibility, from emotion to intention, from drifting to designing. This shift, this transformation, is the mark of the wealthy. Not because they were born into riches, but because they were born with the same opportunity as every man. The opportunity to choose their thinking. The richest 1% have chosen. They chose discipline over distraction. They chose value over vanity. They chose long-term outcomes over short-term indulgence. And those choices repeated daily, compounded over years, produced what the world sees as wealth. But what the world sees is only the fruit. It does not see the root, the invisible hours, the mental preparation, the self-denial, the early mornings, the quiet evenings spent refining the system. It does not see the sacrifices. It does not see the moments of doubt turned into faith, nor the failures turned into foundation. You must understand, wealth is not a destination. It is a way of living. a way of thinking. And thinking, right thinking, is your birthright. No man is excluded from the opportunity to develop his mind into a machine of wealth. So the question is no longer, can I become rich? The question is, am I willing to become different in order to deserve wealth? Most will never ask this question. They want the results without the renovation. They want the prize without the price. But wealth does not reward wishes. It rewards alignment. It demands internal order before external abundance. Look around you. Look at the patterns. Look at the men and women who have built true wealth. Not temporary riches, not fleeting fame, but sustained freedom. They operate by principle. They live on purpose. They are not reactive because they no longer live at the mercy of emotion. That is not to say they are cold. No, they are composed. They are not detached from life. They are engaged in it more deeply than anyone else. But they are no longer prisoners to impulse. Their emotions serve them. They do not serve their emotions. This is what you must become. The master of your inner world, because the inner precedes the outer. The thoughts precede the fortune. The structure of the mind determines the structure of the results. To create wealth, you must study your own behavior like an engineer studies a blueprint. You must ask yourself, where am I leaking energy? Where am I spending instead of investing? Where am I working without creating something I will still own? Every question is a portal, and the man who questions deeply will find the path to wealth hidden in his own habits. Examine how you spend your time. Is it on tasks that multiply? Is it on activities that build long-term value? Is it on conversations that refine your vision? Or are you simply entertaining your boredom with distraction? The man who is creating wealth is not obsessed with the clock. He is obsessed with outcomes. He is not trying to look productive. He is trying to build something that outlasts him. You must understand this if you wish to join the 1%. They are not faster. They are clearer. They are not more talented. They are more focused. They don't follow every opportunity. They go deep on one. They don't overcomplicate. They simplify. They don't panic. They pivot. This is the character of the wealthy. Simplicity in vision, clarity in execution, endurance in adversity. They are not seduced by hype. They are not moved by trends. Their vision is rooted deep, and their roots are built in principle. You must become a man of principle. That is your leverage. The man of principle cannot be bought with comfort. He does not abandon his path because the journey feels difficult. He understands that every sacrifice is an investment, and that one day the return will far outweigh the cost. And when the results come, as they always do for the disciplined, he will not be surprised. He will not celebrate prematurely. He will simply continue. Because he understands that wealth is not a moment, it is a way. It is not a destination. It is a rhythm. It is the outcome of a lifestyle crafted with discipline and sustained by vision. Do not chase riches. Build rhythm. Daily rhythm, focused rhythm, productive rhythm. Create habits that make excuses impossible. Create systems that make results inevitable. Automate your discipline. Ritualize your growth. Set your life to the beat of success and let nothing interrupt it. You will be tempted. You will be tested. There will be moments where doubt creeps in, where the pace slows, where your old life whispers for you to come back. But you must not. You must remember. Remember who you are building this for. Remember what freedom tastes like. Remember the man you said you would become, and become him. Because wealth is not for the man who starts fast. It is for the man who finishes strong. The world will not hand you a fortune, but it will always respond to structure, to systems, to silent consistency. Those who create wealth are not waiting for the world to notice. They are too busy executing, too committed to slow progress, too aligned with their mission. And in the end, they always win. Not because they shouted the loudest, but because they worked the longest, because they stayed when others quit, because they trusted principle over popularity, because they lived on purpose. So I say to you now, do not look for the next trick. Do not look for a shortcut. Do not look for an easier path. Look inward. Strengthen your character. Structure your time. Simplify your actions. Sharpen your vision. Build your wealth not from noise, but from discipline. Forget about making money and become wealth itself. Have you ever asked yourself this powerful question? What would my life look like if I stopped watching others and started building my own? Let that question settle in your mind like a seed, for that seed, if nurtured with discipline, belief, and direction, can grow into a tree of unstoppable success. Let me tell you something I've learned from a lifetime of studying the most successful men of industry, thought, and invention. One of the greatest secrets to their advancement wasn't competition. See, it wasn't connections. It wasn't privilege. It was focus. Ruthless, unwavering, unapologetic focus on their own mission, their own calling, their own business, and not anybody else's. When you mind your own business, life rewards you. You stop bleeding energy where it doesn't belong. You stop reacting to distractions that have nothing to do with your purpose. You stop comparing yourself to people who aren't even walking the same road. And most importantly, you start building something real, something that reflects the power of your thoughts, the discipline of your habits, and the clarity of your vision. You see, most people are not failing because they lack talent. They are failing because they are investing their attention in everything but what matters. They are experts at watching, not creating. They know the headlines of other people's lives but have no manuscript for their own. They speak often, but they execute rarely. They know more about celebrities than they do about their own future. This is the disease of the age, distraction disguised as relevance. You must choose to live differently. You must choose to mind your own business, not just in conversation, but in concentration. When I say mind your own business, I'm not simply telling you to stay out of drama. I'm inviting you to step into dominion, to take back full authority over your mind, your time, your priorities, and your destiny. Because until you own those things, you will always be a servant to someone else's vision. Understand this. Your mind is a garden. What grows in it is entirely your responsibility. If you are not planting ideas of success, focus, and progress, then weeds of doubt, comparison, and mediocrity will overtake it. That's not a guess. That's a law. The law of attention says, what you focus on expands. So if you are focusing on gossip, other people's approval, or the fear of judgment, then you are watering the wrong soil. And don't be surprised when the harvest is bitter. But when you begin each day by asking, what is mine to build today? What is mine to control today? What is mine to master today? Now you are operating on the level of a builder, a leader, a creator. This is the difference between drifting and directing. Most men drift. They float along on the surface of life, reacting to everything, pulled by every wave, wind, and whisper. They get up in the morning already behind, already tied into other people's energy, their opinions, their needs, their chaos. And by noon, they are depleted. And by night, they feel defeated. Then they wonder why nothing is changing. But the man who minds his own business has a different aura. You feel it. You see it. He's not loud, but he's clear. He's not everywhere, but he's effective. He's not seeking validation because he's got a vision. When you mind your own business, your energy sharpens. Your conversations get shorter. Your circle gets smaller. Your habits get cleaner. Your goals get clearer. Why? Because success is not just about what you add, it's about what you eliminate. And the first thing you must eliminate is the need to explain yourself. You don't owe anyone your energy, your reasoning, or your presence unless it aligns with your purpose. Let them misunderstand you. Let them question you. Let them gossip. Just don't let them distract you. Because every moment you spend explaining is a moment you're not executing. Let me repeat that. Every moment you spend explaining is a moment you're not executing. You are not here to be understood by the average. You are here to transcend the average. And you can't do that if you're constantly pulled into emotional debates, online drama, or trying to fix what was never broken in you to begin with. Here's the truth most don't want to hear. The path to peace, power, and prosperity is not noisy. It is quiet. It is personal. It is internal. It is doing the work while no one claps. It is making the plan while others mock. It is staying consistent while others drift. And it is winning in silence not because you're hiding, but because you're building. Do you want to know why silence is so powerful? Because while the world screams, the man who is silent sees. He sees the patterns. He sees the openings. He sees where others are too busy reacting. And from that stillness, he strikes with precision. This is not passive living. This is purposeful dominance. You don't need to talk about it. You don't need to post about it. Just move, just grow, just execute. The results will speak loud enough. And when they do, remember, don't get distracted by the applause either. Because applause is just another form of noise. Stay on course. There will be people who hate that you've chosen yourself. They will resent your discipline. They will misunderstand your silence. They will call your boundaries selfish. But let me remind you, their confusion is not your problem. Their reactions are not your responsibility. Your only duty is to the calling within you, to the vision that was given to you and not to them. When you stop explaining yourself and start becoming yourself, you shift the entire energy of your life. You create momentum where there was once hesitation. You create discipline where there was once delay. You create focus where there was once frustration. This is what happens when you mind your own business. You become magnetic. Success begins to find you. Opportunities begin to notice you. The right people begin to align with you, not because you chased them, but because you became the kind of person worth being connected to. This is how wealth is built, not from noise, but from clarity. You don't become wealthy chasing every trend. You don't become powerful copying every move. You become powerful when you own your lane so thoroughly that no one else can imitate it. That kind of power begins the day you choose to protect your peace, value your focus, and direct your time like a general on a mission, not a civilian waiting to be told what to do. I say this to you not to inspire you, but to awaken you. You have a business to build, a life to lead, a mind to master, and every second you spend focusing on what someone else is doing is a second stolen from your legacy. Guard your attention like treasure. Protect your energy like a fortress. And above all, mind your own business. That is not an insult. It is a call to greatness. It is the only way to build a life that is truly yours. And once you understand that, once it clicks, once it becomes your default state of being, you will look back one day not in regret but in reverence. You will say, "Thank God I stopped watching and started working. Thank God I stopped reacting and started creating. Thank God I learned the discipline of minding my own business." Because that, more than intelligence, more than talent, more than money, is the root of real success. It is the soil from which your legacy will grow. And if you're willing to protect it, it will reward you in ways the world can't even comprehend. Now let us examine the fruits that begin to appear when you commit fully to minding your own business, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and materially. For it is not a passive act. No, it is the deliberate withdrawal from trivial distractions and the intentional redirection of your life's energy toward constructive enterprise. When you mind your own business, you are no longer a servant to public opinion. You no longer beg for validation in the marketplace of noise. You find your power in clarity, and clarity becomes the currency through which you operate. The man who minds his own business becomes dangerous, not in the sense of harm, but in the sense that he is immune to manipulation. He cannot be lured by gossip. He cannot be baited into envy. He does not compare his chapter 3 to another man's chapter 10, because he knows that his only competition is the man he was yesterday. Your peace is power. Do not let that escape you. And your silence is not weakness. It is the soil where strength takes root. What begins to happen when you make this shift? When you pull your focus inward, away from the noise, away from the opinions, away from the need to impress, you gain momentum. You see, most people remain stagnant not because they lack potential, but because they are perpetually entangled in things that do not concern them. They waste hours debating the behavior of others. They scroll endlessly through lives that aren't theirs. They speak loudly about goals, but do not guard the path toward them. Their energy is split between 100 things that yield no return. But you, the man who minds his own business, you begin to build quiet momentum. No one sees the early mornings. No one witnesses the late nights. No one hears the conversations you have with yourself, but it is happening nonetheless. Every hour spent in focus builds confidence. Every day spent in discipline sharpens your edge. And eventually, the results begin to speak in a volume louder than any self-promotion. Now, this is where the power compounds. Because when you operate from this centered state, you attract not just wealth, but the right kind of wealth. The wealth of self-respect, the wealth of time, the wealth of clarity. And yes, the wealth of money, because money, though not the goal, is the byproduct of sustained value delivered into the world without distraction. Let me remind you, the riches you desire are not found by chasing them in the external world. They are created by aligning your internal world. Control your thoughts and your circumstances will bow. Discipline your habits and success will follow your command. Protect your energy and your environment will elevate to meet you. This is what begins to happen when you mind your business. Not just the business of money, but the business of growth, of integrity, of mission, of purpose. You become unshakable. And that, my friend, is where the transformation becomes evident. You stop seeking revenge or applause. You stop worrying who supports you or who doesn't. You stop chasing trends. Because now, your sense of self is not rooted in external reaction, but internal conviction. You know what you are building. You know why you rise each morning. You know what you stand for. That kind of clarity intimidates the noisy, but it liberates the focused. Understand this. Your energy is your most valuable asset, and wherever you place your attention, you invest your future. Most people squander it in useless debate, argument, and competition, but not you. You invest it in mastery. You invest it in your health. You invest it in your vision. You invest it in becoming so consistent, so focused, so aligned that success is no longer an event, it is a byproduct. Let me ask you, when was the last time you truly sat with your vision uninterrupted? When was the last time you disconnected from the crowd to reconnect with your calling? That silence you're avoiding, that's where the answers live. And once you learn to thrive in that solitude, you become selective, not arrogant, but discerning. You don't consume what everyone else consumes. You don't say yes out of guilt. You don't need to defend your pace, your choices, or your timeline because you've outgrown the need to be understood. You are too busy becoming. That's the real power behind minding your own business. It grants you access to compounding growth. Small wins become habits. Habits become standards. Standards become identity. And identity becomes destiny. Now, let me speak plainly to you. Not everyone will understand your silence. Some will mistake it for weakness. Some will project their own fear onto it. Some will try to drag you back into the noise, into their drama, into their insecurities. Why? Because your peace confronts their chaos. Your focus highlights their distractions. Your discipline magnifies their excuses. But you must remain unmoved, because the moment you lower your frequency to match theirs, you surrender your progress. Remain committed to your mission. Let your work speak where words are no longer required. Let your focus be so unwavering that your name is whispered in rooms you haven't entered yet. Let your actions become a message too loud to ignore, even in silence. And let the results that come from that discipline serve as a testimony, not just to others, but to yourself. That you did not cave, that you stayed the course, that you trusted the process. This is the essence of self-leadership. And make no mistake, self-leadership is rare. It requires maturity. It requires the courage to go against the grain. It requires the humility to improve privately and the strength to succeed quietly. So I say to you, stop explaining, stop justifying, stop entertaining noise. You have work to do. You have a life to build. You have a mind to develop, a body to strengthen, a legacy to craft. And none of that can be accomplished if you're constantly seeking applause for every move. Mature ambition is not loud. It is focused. And focused men do not waste time trying to convince the world they're worthy. They know that proof follows discipline. And now I ask you, are you ready to live that way? Are you ready to silence the world so you can hear your purpose more clearly? Are you ready to become the man who is so dialed into his growth that distractions dissolve? Then start today. Reclaim your mornings. Reclaim your schedule. Reclaim your energy. Reclaim your mind. You owe it to your potential. You owe it to your future. You owe it to every version of you that had to fight to get here. Minding your own business is not a retreat, it is a strategic repositioning. It is stepping back from the noise so you can rise with precision. And when you do, when you stand firm in that silence, understand this. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are being forged. And when the time comes, when the season arrives, when the results are ready to emerge, they will do so not because you begged, but because you built. This is what happens when you mind your own business. There is a power that multiplies when a man minds his own business, not just in work, but in thought, in energy, in devotion. This power is called concentration, and it is one of the most undervalued forces in the world. When you concentrate your mind on your business, your true business, you build momentum so unshakable that no critic, no distraction, no storm can tear it down. Now let me make this perfectly clear. Minding your own business is not about selfishness. It is about responsibility. It is about knowing what is your task and what is not. It is about guarding your time, your energy, your ideas like a king guards his crown. And when you do this, when you put your hands to your craft with full intensity and no external interference, you begin to notice something strange happen. The world around you starts to shift. Doors begin to open that were once sealed. People start to take notice. The same individuals who mocked your silence will now chase your wisdom. Why? Because silence and results are louder than noise and opinion. You see, when you stop worrying about what others are doing, how fast they're moving, how much they're achieving, you allow yourself the full luxury of depth. You stop scratching the surface. You go deep. And in depth you find greatness, because surface is crowded. But depth is empty. That's where the few go. That's where mastery lives. And mastery attracts wealth not because you chase it, but because it cannot resist true excellence. The man who minds his business knows the difference between movement and progress, between attention and impact, between applause and accomplishment. Now let me tell you something you may have forgotten. You do not owe anyone your attention. You owe them your results. You owe the world your service, your brilliance, your purpose, not your responses to rumors, your rebuttals to criticism, or your opinions on gossip. Every second you spend defending yourself, explaining yourself, or responding to noise is a second stolen from your legacy. And this is where most people fail. They don't know how to sit quietly in their own lane. They're addicted to comparison, addicted to clapping back, addicted to proving they're right. And in all that proving, they lose their power. Because power does not scream, power just moves. So I ask you today, are you minding your own business, or are you distracted by theirs? Are you watering your own soil, or are you trying to uproot someone else's tree? You must understand you do not need to destroy another man's house to build your own. You do not need to outshine others. You need only to ignite your own light so brightly, so purely, that darkness cannot exist around it. That's what happens when you mind your own business. Your energy becomes magnetic. Your presence becomes respected. Your word becomes rare and valuable. And your work begins to speak without needing explanation. Now here's the truth no one likes to say out loud. Most people are not disciplined enough to focus on their own growth. It's easier to watch someone else's journey than to walk your own. It's easier to critique from the sidelines than to build from the foundation. But what's easier is rarely what leads to wealth, to freedom, to mastery. You see, discipline is the quiet architect of destiny. Every single day that you choose to ignore the distractions, the debates, the drama, and instead commit to your business, your routine, your calling, you're building a future others will one day envy. But that future only belongs to the builder, not the bystander. And the builder keeps his head down, not in shame, but in strategy. He wakes up with clarity. He works in silence. He doesn't argue, he executes. He doesn't react, he rises. He doesn't explain, he expands. Because he knows his business is not for everyone to understand, it is for him to fulfill. Now understand this. Wealth follows those who stay consistent. Not flashy, not reactive, not emotionally erratic. Just disciplined, just committed, just doing what they said they'd do long after the mood they set it in is gone. That's the true meaning of minding your own business. It means you don't betray your path just because someone else took a shortcut. It means you don't measure your value by applause, but by alignment. It means you let your results arrive before your reputation. And when the results arrive, and they will, everything changes. The critics disappear. The doubters go silent. The world that ignored you now studies you, but by then you're no longer seeking their attention. You've outgrown it because you've built something real. Something that wasn't born in a comment section, but in your conviction. You see, when you spend enough time focused, disciplined, and detached from noise, something miraculous happens. You become unbothered, not passive, not arrogant, but deeply, unshakably centered. That's when you become dangerous, not because you wish harm, but because you are no longer vulnerable to distraction. Your mind becomes a fortress. Your path becomes clear. Your time becomes sacred. And your life becomes evidence that silence is not weakness, it is wisdom. So let them talk. Let them guess. Let them assume. You keep building. You keep sharpening. You keep evolving. And remember this. There will be a moment not far from now where your silence will be the loudest sound in the room. Not because of what you say, but because of what you've done. You'll walk in and they will already know. Because real power doesn't arrive with noise. It arrives with presence. That's the reward for minding your own business. That's the victory no one can take from you. That's the life that belongs to the builder, the doer, the focused, the silent one who stayed the course while others chased approval. Now go forward and reclaim your attention. Reclaim your energy. Reclaim your business. Because greatness isn't found in proving. It is found in producing. Let the world speak. You execute. Let the world wander. You build. Let the world judge. you rise. This is what happens when you mind your own business. You don't need validation because you've already built value. And that is success no man can question.